I kept most of the default transitions and did a few animations along the way, but I didn't spend too much time on either one of those. By default, Codename One uses the slide or slide fade transitions. These should look decent for the most part, but I wanted to demonstrate and discuss some of the nuanced transitions in the Uber app. In the native Uber app, transitions look a bit different between iOS and Android. I didn't go there because I don't think this was done on purpose. In Android's material design, a common transition pattern is one where we move an element from one view to the next, and indeed, this is what we have between the login form and the EnterMobileNumberForm. As you can see, the enter your mobile number and flag elements animate to the place in the next form, while other elements fade in out respectively. This transition repeats itself in reverse when we press back. There are a couple of things that might not be immediately obvious when you look at this. The background pattern instantly disappears instead of fading. This might be on purpose, but it doesn't look good. This is a bit hard to see as it happens relatively quickly, but the back arrow slides in from the left. Codename One has a Morph transition, which doesn't include the slide in-out option for some elements. Only the fade in-out of these elements, so we'll pass on that aspect. I chose to fade the background pattern in-out as it looks much better. I'm not sure why Uber chose not to do that. Notice that this works for us despite the fact that the background is constantly rotating when we get back to the main form, and this isn't supported in the native Android app. Transitions are decoupled from the forms or components that they transition. This allows us to define a transition regardless of the contents of a form. In order to use the Morph transition, we need to communicate to it the components we would like to animate, but they might not be instantiated at this time yet. So we need to use component names. If the components on both forms have the same name, we can make the code even shorter. We can perform the transition using this code in login form. We will obviously need the corresponding code in EnterMobileNumberForm. Notice we set the names to the identical values. We could have used different names and then just specified those different names in the Morph method. We would also want Morph to run in reverse when going back, so the obvious thing to do is define a Morph transition in the back command. But there are a couple of nuances. Notice I used strings instead of getName as the back command is defined before the components in the full code listing. This is one of those things that you only see on the device. The virtual keyboard opens when we enter the mobile number form. So when we go back, it looks a bit weird on Android. I stop editing to fold it first, and then use the callback to detect when the keyboard actually finished closing. Otherwise, the transition will run before the form had time to adjust. The problem is that if you run this code, it will fail badly. The background animation tries to repaint while the transition is in progress. The solution for that is a small, simple change to login form painter. I'm effectively blocking animation of the background during transition, which would also make the transition smoother as a result.